Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. We're still continuing with the Java tutorials. Uh, as I've promised on the last video that we're gonna continue with loops now. We're gonna, learn about loops, how we can use loops, what are loops in Java. So there are different kind of loops in Java. So we can explore popular loops. But okay, loops, yeah, we're gonna explore loops in Java. For example, there's while loop, there's for loop. There's for loop is one of the most popular loops that is used in Java. So okay, let's dive in. So imagine you are given a task to count from maybe 1 to 1000. So basically the manual way, we will start with system dot out dot print line, and then you will start saying, then you create variables to store that value. Say 1, a is equals to 1, int b is equals to 2. You see, so this way it's it's redundant. It's you can't imagine now by the time that you reach 1000, it's already be like past 3 days or or 4 days away. So that's why loops are there. They help us to iterate through large set of numbers, to go through lists, to go through whatever that or that we have to deal with. So for an example, I'm gonna start with the while loop. Okay, this one will be an example for the while loop. While loop. For while loop, let's just say let's start from 0. So when we start from 0, what are we gonna say? When you want to use a while loop in Java, you just type while, then you open the brackets and you say what? When I is still, for example, when I is still less than 10, if I is still less than 10, you know what? Count up. We're gonna count increment a, not I. It's gonna be a because we have used a here. So basically, what we're saying is that as long as while a is less than 10, you can see that the initial value that we assigned is 0. So the condition is while a is still less than 10, please increment a. So in Java, this operation, it means that a is gonna, every time this loop runs, it's gonna be it's gonna 1 is gonna be added. It's incrementing. So if you do it like this, where's the minus sign? If you minus like this, it means that every time this loop runs, a is gonna be minused by 1, but we want to increment up until it reaches 10. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna say what? We're gonna cut this line. I'm being lazy to type again. Cut this line, edit here, and say what? We're printing what? A. So let's run this and let's see what happens. So basics. So you see on the terminal, let me increase the screen. It starts counting. So it ran the loop and say, you know what? Let me run the loop. The condition is still met. The condition is still true. A is still less than 10. So it said what? Okay, let me get inside the condition. Then it added 1. Checked again. The condition is still met. 2. Checked again. Condition is still met. At 9, the condition was still met. Then it added 10. Then the condition was met. Then that's when it stopped. So that's how loops work. So this is the while loop. So for the second loop, the popular one, it's the for loop. So for the for loop, it goes like this. You see, for is the keyword for the for loop. You see, you see int. This is the starting point. Like I really like to call it the starting point. We're starting from 0, and I must be less than what? must be less than or equal to 10. And how are we gonna reach 10? By incrementing I by 1 every time the loop runs. Like you get what I'm saying. So then we're gonna do what? We're gonna let me copy this line so that you can see what goes on inside. So basically in the for loop, we're saying it has 3 parts. It has the starting part, it has the end part, it has, the how part, because we're saying that, okay, this is I. Let's start from 0 with this I. We're gonna, the variable I is starting from 0. Initially, there's a 0 value. Then I must not exceed 10. At least it must be equal or less than 10. How are we gonna do so? By incrementing 1 every time the loops runs. So it's gonna be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up until 10 when the condition is met. Okay, let me just quickly comment this out so that we can see how the for loop runs. So you see, it started from what? It's inclusive of what? It's inclusive of the 0. I think we can actually modify even the while so that it can be inclusive of the 0 by doing this. Okay, let's, what? Because Java, it when it runs its program, it runs it like it doesn't. How can I put this? Okay, let me just give you an example so that you can see. We can cut this line, and so what? Let's print these values before we increment. So because the for loop started with a 0. So let's see how the while loop will also do. You see, it also started with a 0, but it didn't. It was less than 10 because what? We didn't say less than or equal to 10. But if we said less than or equal to 10, it could have also added 10. So you see, so this is the example of while and also the example of for. So let's go to the next loop. The next loop is called a do while. Okay, let me just leave a comment here. For loop. The next one, we call it a do while. So a do while, the structure of a do while is like this. We're saying int j equals to 0 initially. Okay, then we say do. This is the keyword for the do while. Do print out what? Print out the value of j, then increment the value of j. This is the do. The do is the action part. It says print out the value of j, then increment the value of j by 1 while let me just move it up here. While this is the condition that we need to set. While j is still less than or equal to 10. And let's close. So like let me just space out so that you can see what I'm talking about. So basically we are saying that, this is the action part, the do. We're saying what? Print out the value of j. When you print out the value of j, also increment it by 1. Add 1 on top of the value. While j is still less than or equal to 10. So the moment that j equals to 10, the loop will break. It won't exceed 10. It will only be equal or less than 10. So let's run it and see how the do while loop does its thing. You see, it's also inclusive of 10 because of what? Of this thing, the less than or equal to. So that is the do while loop. So mostly in the examples that I'm gonna be giving out, those are the loops that we're gonna be commonly be using. So other than that, some of the loops are, if maybe things like, nesting loops, we can still talk about them. But for an example now, I can give you nesting of loops. But if you can understand these basics of how this loop work, nesting of loop will be, it's gonna be simple. It's gonna be simple because it's just, a loop inside of a loop. We can just say, what, for int I starting from 0, semicolon, int